And I can just console.log new users array, and hopefully if everything went fine, we should actually see other users which are also registered. I think we should get an empty array because I don't think I have other users. So let's say we want to register a new user. Okay, we do have other users. Okay, we do have other users. The only user that is not being returned here is user 1. So you can see user 2, 3, and user 4. And back here immediately, what I simply want to do is to store other users in store. So we can just use the dispatch, and I'm going to dispatch a type of store other users, and then we have a payload of new users array, which is going to store it to our store. So let's scroll a little bit down, and I can now uncomment header. So our header is just a normal design. We have to actually import that at the top. So let me just comment here components, or components is good. And now we can import header from header. And let's save that, and in the file there is nothing there, so I'm just going to grab something from our readme file and put here immediately. So inside the readme file, just go ahead and grab everything from here and paste that. So let's go ahead and save and refresh our inbox, and hopefully we should see the header component being displayed. So you can definitely see Laravel Instagram chat. So we are making a little bit of progress now. And back inside our inbox file, or the inbox component, we have the header, and the next thing we have to bring in here is the left component. So let me just put that down first, and let's create that. And creating that means that we have to come inside the chat folder. I'm going to create one more folder called containers, and I'm going to create the two files. We have the left.js, and also we have the right.js. And right inside this chat folder, let's create one more folder called inbox. So, but before we proceed to create other necessary components inside this inbox, let's kind of make these ones to be ROFCE, make it to be normal, and also we have to do for the left, and hit enter. I'm going to come over to the inbox component itself, and then we can save. And let's scroll a little bit up here. I can now import the left and the right components. So I'm not really good in naming components, but I think this should definitely give you an idea of how to name components. So we have containers, then we have the left. I'm just gonna grab that and rename this to right as well. So for now, we are gonna focus on the left component, and let's make sure it's working perfectly. So let's just say left side. So if we come back here and refresh, definitely we should see, we should see something. So we are getting the left component, and it's showing us everything is working fine. So don't mind this error. I don't think we do have an error. If we do have an error, definitely we shouldn't be inside this inbox component. So right now, let's go ahead and work on our left component. And this left container is going to, or the left component is going to contain all the users that we're going to be chatting with, both the users we are going to be clicking and chatting with. And at the top, we are going to make some couple of imports. So we have to import from React Redux. We also have to import from, okay, for now, let's work on React Redux. We don't need mutation or anything like GraphQL over here. I'm going to import the use dispatch and also use selector. Then I'm going to import some couple of actions, but right now we've not yet created any actions. Let's go over to our store. Inside the actions, let's create a file called chat actions, and there I'm going to create I'm going to export an action called load peer-to-peer or load P2P chat. So this action is going to be helping us to make a request to our backend and then getting all the users that we need. So right here we have to use dispatch, and I'm going to come back to that left component. Let me just go ahead and close all these other components. So let me close these files. We don't need them for now. I can close the writes and I can leave this tray, which is good. Then I can import. So we go back 3 to 4 folder backwards, and we go into the store actions, and then we have chat actions. Then we can call it load P2P chats. And the next thing we have to import is the types of actions. So I do have from 4 folder backwards store actions as well. We have types, and right here we have user clicked and also resets user clicked. So we already have this put down when we started off. So you just import them, and then we can also save. And right now at this stage, we don't need to actually load a user because we've actually loaded a user from our inbox component, and we also dispatched that user to our store. So we can just go ahead and use the selector. So from use selector, we can have access to our reducer. Let's get state.user. Then right here, we can have access to the user, and let's just map it to this user. So let's say this current user is just what we have in access. Then we have other users as well. And if we check inside, if we do check inside our store in reducers inbox in reducers index, I say chat, then click on that user, you can see we do have other users as well, and also this user. And the only thing we can have access right now to we can have access to these values, but there is nothing there. So we're gonna be actually okay, we did dispatch some of this information, but we didn't actually work on the reducer. So we actually dispatch other users and as well as store user info, but we didn't actually store it in our store. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. So from here, because from here we are going to have access to them, I can come over to this user reducer. Right here I can just say we do have a user, which is going to be payload, because for the user we are dispatching everything to the user. So this is just the user. And then one more thing is for the store other users. For other users, it's also something that's very simple. So let's just say case store other users. So right here we can just return from the state. We have other users, and as well it's just the payload that we need. Because if we also check inside here, definitely we are dispatching to other users. So we are dispatching all the users from the array. So this is just an array of users as well. And let's just check if everything worked perfectly. So if we console out, let's say user and also other users, hopefully we should see all the users and also the current user. And let's just refresh. It says store other users is not defined, which is correct, and that means that we have to bring it into our reducer. And let's give it one more time, give it a refresh, and also store other users is not defined. We have store other users. Yeah, I made a mistake. So we are not supposed to be getting any other error for now. Let me just quickly check here. So we have store other users. So due to that little error, it got our app terminated. So I just have to quickly restart the application. And once it's done restarting and I refresh, I think we shouldn't get any other error. And now let's refresh and hopefully we shouldn't get any error. The only error we have here is user is not defined. So this is not supposed to be user. This is supposed to be this user, because we mapped that user to this user. And one more refresh. Oh God, I don't know why we are still getting an error. We have state.user. Okay, and that is working perfectly. So right here you can see at the end, when the GraphQL is done getting all the data and dispatching the data to our store, you can see the steps or the processes. So the last one got the current user and also other users. So let's go ahead and display some things with our left component. And this one I'm going to add this, give it a class name of charts left. So the CSS is already there. We don't have to do anything regarding CSS. And I'm going to have one more div, and this div is going to have a class name of charts username. So this is where the username is going to be displaying, and let's just give it a title and then a heading of tray, and then we have to make sure that we have a user. If there is a user there, which is the current user, we just have to grab the name of the user, and then or else we just return a null. So let's refresh and we should see the name of the user right here. That's still not showing up, and I think I can just refresh. So right away you can see we now have user 1. So if we log in with other users, we should definitely see the users over here. So let me just clear this out. I don't need this console. Then beneath here we are gonna have another div with a class name of chat users, and for the chat users, which means these are the users that we want to chat with. So we have other users. We have to make sure we have other users, and as well other users, this is other users. The length of the array returned is greater than 0. So if in a case there is something like that, we have to do some things here. So let me just break this down. So the first thing we have to do is to wrap this in a fragment, and inside this fragment I'm going to put another curly braces, and then we have to loop through other users in order to display it. So I can say other users dot map. So right here I can use the structuring while I return the callback. And okay, let me just not return the callback that way. Let me just use a div here, because we are going to need the key. And right here I can just grab the email and also the name and then the key. So let me break this down again, and then inside this div we can just pass the key. So you can actually do something like this and it's going to still work. And then inside here we are going to return a component. So let me just say I returned the names of the users. You're gonna see we see other users name here. So on this refresh, so you can see we have the names of the users. So if I reference the name, that should definitely see user 1, user 3, and user 4. So right here, sometimes I don't know why I have to refresh in order to see this. And definitely you can see user 2, user 3, and also user 4. So instead of this being displayed this way, we are gonna return a component here. So let me just go ahead and create that component, and that should be inside the inbox folder, then in the chat folder, then right here we're gonna create a file called inbox chats or chat users. So let's say chat users, and these are the users that we want to chat. So let's just bring down the fresh boilerplate, and let's go back to our left. So instead of us to use this name here, I can just use the chat users component, and right here I'm gonna import that chat users. So let's, I think, where did we import? Okay, so let's comment this component. So I have to import chat users from, let's go back a little bit and go to the inbox. So we don't even need to go back anywhere. We just have to import it directly from this current folder. So this is chat users, not chat user. I think, did I get it correctly? So we have inbox, and inside here we have chat users. So let's rename this and make sure everything is plural. And back here, so I just want to make sure it's working. For some reason, I don't know why the recommendation is not coming out, but I hope I got everything right. So we have chat users. Oh, so sorry guys, this is chat users directly on this current folder. So I just got myself confused. And let's scroll a little bit down, and inside these chat users, we are going to pass all these values, the name and the email. So let's just quickly do that. So I have to pass the email and also the name here, and we have okay, let me not just go there right now. I think I'm trying to rush that. So inside this component, we can now use the structuring and grab the name and also the email. And then right here, we can then put in the design. So we have a class name of chat user, and then inside this div we have a button. So this button is gonna have a class name. So okay, let me just add a class name of active for now, but you're gonna understand what I mean later. Then we do have to use avatar. So use avatar is a component that we are going to import from, let's call it use avatar. We're going to import that from React avatar. So this helps us to generate random avatars, and then inside there we are going to add a source, which is going to be a random generated avatar. And I'm going to import one more component here called from random avatar generator. I want to import avatar generator. So let me just quickly create an avatar. So it goes this way. First of all is to bring in the generator, which is avatar generator. Then we can now create an avatar, which is going to take in the generator dot generate random avatar. So this is gonna generate random avatar for us that we can actually use. So it's a great tool. And then inside here, I want to use that avatar because it's an image, and then we can add an auth. So an auth here, we can just say this is just a name, and then we have a size. I'm gonna give it a size of 40. I don't want to exceed that. Then we're gonna have a div here as well with a class name, chat user, and then one more info, and then we have another div with a class name of chat username and also chat user active. So active is an overlay, and then right here we have a name, and so this overlay is below. So we have lat scene. So you can actually use a lat scene if you actually can do that. It's something that you can take up as a challenge. So let's go ahead and check. So we have our chat users, and our chat users accept the name. And right now, let me just do a hard reload directly. I don't want this to delay us. And it's actually showing, but it's not nice. And I think it's because the button is not being wrapped properly. So let me just grab this button, and we have to wrap everything inside here, inside this button. So format that properly and give it one more refresh. And this time around, it should definitely show properly. Another hard reload. So right here, you can see we have all these users with this button. So this class over here, you can see it's because of the active, and we are gonna actually use something like a ternary operator to identify the ones that are actually active. So the ones that are actually active are the ones that we are gonna be clicking. So let's work on that immediately. To work on that, we have to come over to the left component, and we are gonna create a callback function. So we're gonna call, but before I do that, I wanna bring in the dispatch. So we have this patch, which is use this patch. So right here, we're gonna create something called GraphQL user, which is gonna be a callback function, and is going to return the email. So the way we can use that actually is to pass it to our chat users component. And also I'm gonna create one more thing. Okay guys, let's just add this first. We are gonna add that shortly as well. So I'm gonna pass GraphQL user over here, and inside our chat users component, we are gonna use that on the button. So I'm gonna change this to onClick, which is going to return a callback function. Then we can pass in the GraphQL user, and then we can pass the current email that is being clicked. So let's return this GraphQL user, and let's make sure it's correct. It's actually added correctly. So when we type down GraphQL user, you can see it shows very well, and when we click on it, it highlights this function. So whenever I go and click on a user, I should definitely see the email on our console. So let's click on a user here. Definitely is not working. It's not working, and I think it's because I didn't place this properly. So that's not supposed to be on the button. It's supposed to be on this actual div over here. So let me save that and give one more refresh, and hopefully this time around it should work perfectly. Don't mind that. Let's give it a refresh and make sure that our app is working. Okay, just got terminated. So let me refresh now that we are done restarting the application. It's working perfectly. And let's click on a user. So you can see when I click on this user, you are getting user 3, user 2, and also user 4 over here. So our email is working. So we are going to use this email to actually separate the active class to a current clicked user. I'm going to come back here, and at the top here, I'm going to add clicked user email. So let me just copy this because I don't want to do a mistake. And instead of us to use an active class here, the way we can use that is very simple. So right here, we can say if the clicked user email is equals to this current user, which is the current user email, we just want to return a class of active, or else we just want to return an empty class. So right here, it's still going to highlight them until we fix that. I think it should highlight all of them. Yeah. And let's come back to the left component, and then we can add the clicked user email. So this clicked user email is actually coming from our reducer. If you scroll up here, you can see the clicked user email, because we actually need to get the user that we are going to be chatting with whenever we click on that user. So what I would do here, it's we have to grab using the selector. So let's make sure use selector is imported. Okay, we have it imported, and I want to get the state.user, and then I can paste in the clicked user email. So what we are going to do next is, whenever we click on that, first of all, we have to disconnect any pusher connection from any user that we tried to chat with previously. So this is just called window.echo.leave. So even if I do this, we are gonna get an error because we've not actually touched the pusher, but we are actually getting to the end of the tutorial. Then first of all, I have to reset the clicked user. Okay, let me just paste that. I have to reset any clicked user email and store a new one. So the way I can do that is to dispatch what is called a type of reset user clicked, and then after that we have to dispatch a type of user clicked, and then we can pass in the payload, which is the email. So this gives us this helps us to actually clear any user that we are previously chatting with, and then we set a new user. So if we go over to our user reducer, we've not yet handled the action for the user clicked. So you can see we have user clicked here. So let's just go ahead and handle that. I'm going to come below here. We have a case of user clicked, which is going to return an object, and inside here we have to spread the state, and we have user clicked. And first of all, we have to set this to true, and then we have the clicked user email, which is the payload, and lastly we have to trigger what is called message loading. So we're going to know why we triggered that shortly. So we have to trigger what is called message loading. So when we click on a new user, we just want to see a little spinning icon. So we trigger this. By default, it's true. Yeah, it's always true. So we also have to put true here. Then whenever we load the message, we set it to false. So right here you can see we clicked a new user, which is true. We also change the email, and also we also have to set the message loading. And one more thing we have to do is to change also the user that we clicked on our local storage. So we can set a new item called clicked user email, and we just set the payload to it. So sorry for that. So we are done with the user clicked, and if we check here, you can see user clicked, and let's do for the reset user clicked. So let's handle that action. We have reset user that is clicked, which is going to return an object, but first we have to remove the current user. So let's say we have to remove the current user from, or the current email from the local storage as well. And inside here we can spread the state as well, and we have to reset the user clicked and set that to false. Then clicked user email, we just set that to empty string. And we can just go ahead to test out what we just did right now, and refreshing here, we shouldn't get the active class on all of the components again. It says user clicked is not defined, and make sure our app is running. So that's probably coming from our Redux, our reducer, and that's user clicked. So let's save that and give it one more refresh. You can actually use Laravel auto refresh notification. You can actually use that, but I'm not using it. So right now you can see we don't actually have any user that is activated because there is no user that has been clicked. So when I click on user 4, user 3, user 2, so whenever I click on any single user, that user, it's just gonna have the active class, and that fixes it for that. Then the next thing we have to do is to load our P2P messages. So we can actually load it with a relationship of a user, but for now we want to load all messages into the store. So we can just dispatch the function called load P2P charts, which is going to make a request with sender email. So sender email is our current email address, and then the receiver email is actually the user. So let's call it receiver email, which is the, okay, sorry guys, why is it called email? Sender email is this email. Okay, the receiver email is this user. Yeah, sure. So whoever that we are clicking on, we assume that person as a sender to us, while we ourselves is just the receiver. So the receiver is this current user, while the email that we grabbed from here, it's the sender email. So you can actually rename this as sender email. You don't have a problem with that. So let me just quickly do that. Sender email. And sometimes this can be confusing, but trying to use normal naming conventions can actually help you. So let's go over to that action, and inside this action at the top here, I'm going to import Axios, which is going to import from Axios. Sometimes I don't know why I make these mistakes, so let me make sure everything is imported perfectly. So this is Axios. Did I get it right? Let me select this here. And inside here, this is the data, and right here we can use the await. Don't forget to add the async here. You can use await, and then we can use the Axios. We have a method of post, and also we have a URL. So this URL, we are just going to call it P2P. And lastly, we have data. So let me just do a hard load. And when I click on this user, it's going to try to make that request. If everything is working perfectly, we shouldn't get an error. So it's going to try to make a post request to our backend. And definitely it should be blocked, because inside our config folder on the course, we don't have the P2P link added here. So I'm just gonna add we have a P2P here. So this is P2P. So we shouldn't get an error in case we did experience any error. But I don't know why we should actually get something like course was blocked by blah 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 story of Laravel, but I don't know why. But just go ahead and add this /P2P. Or to simplify things, you can okay, let's just add an asterisk here so that any request can actually come in. Then I can get rid of this. So in order to test this out, let's just use the then. I'm gonna do it this way in order to see if everything is working perfectly. So let's just say console.log response.data. Or let me just console.log e. It's been long I made an Axios request, so sorry for that little noise. I'm going to try to refresh this, and if everything worked fine, definitely we should get something here. So that's exactly what I was expecting. Whenever you click on this, it shouldn't make that request. So right now you can see we have a method post not allowed. Let's go over to our course. Let me just add that. Okay, this not allowed probably might mean that we don't have that route. So guys, so sorry for all this noise. So right here, we don't have a P2P route. So what we can do is to add a post route, and I'm gonna give it a URL /p2p. It's gonna have a callback function. So right here we have the request, and let's just map it to request and add a comma over here in order to get rid of that error, and also make sure we have request imported. So this request is coming from HTTP. So we have this one from HTTP, and let's just return something like true, and let's save. Or let me just return maybe something like an array of value. Let's just say chat, and let's just make the request again. And right now you can see it's working perfectly, so we don't have any error, and you can see the data that we are returning. So that means that whenever we click on any single user, we are trying to load a chat between these two users. That is the user that is sending and also the user that is receiving, which is the current user. And the next thing I have to do is to grab those data so we can get datas. And I'm going to map that to data. And first we have the sender email, which is the user we clicked. So here we have the request, and you can just get, there's no space there. I want to get the sender email. So copy this down and add a comma here, and also we have to bring in the receiver email. And I'm going to return true. So guys, actually we've come to a point where the data that is supposed to be returned here is supposed to be the messages that these users actually did send to each other. So if I click any of these, we should actually return that, but right now we are returning true. But the way we are going to do it now is to use what is called pusher. So because pusher is involved, we can actually grab the messages just like I said, but I don't want to do it that way. I want to use pusher. So we're going to create an event, and I can quickly come over to our commander here, and I'm going to type down PHP artisan events generate. And then there are two events that we are going to generate. The first one is called load P2P charts, and also we have to generate one more event called send message, because that's probably the event that we're going to be using to send a message to each other. So this just basically to load chat says so that was supposed to generate, but I don't actually know what the problem is. But what we can actually do is to install require the pusher. So I'm going to type down require pusher/pusher, and they just put pusher PHP server over there. So our pusher is done being required. Then let me just try this way once more time. So we have make event. The other one was event generate, but let's say make event. Let's call it load P2P charts. And hopefully that should work. So we have that event generated, and I'm gonna close. Let me close all these files. I don't need the web anymore. I don't need the course. We don't also need the chat actions, and we can just simplify this code by getting rid of this. So that's good. And just close it, and I can go over to the project folder, and we can look out for events. So right now you can see we have a folder called events. So we can actually use this event to emit to our clients, and we are going to give it a channel name. So coming back to, okay, we actually don't need the route web.php file. So I was supposed to emit the messages both users sent to each other, but what I'm going to do is to emit chats. I'm going to just emit with the information, so I can call it load load P2P charts, which is going to import that. Then right here we can pass the data. So this is going to actually emit with this data, but first we have to give it a channel name and also be able to emit this data with broadcast with. So right here I'm gonna give this a public value, something like that. It's been long I programmed with PHP, so I can't remember most things. So we have peer info here, but we are gonna say this dot peer information. Peer infos is equal to the data, and then we can grab the data here, and let's make this correction. And what I want to do next is to broadcast on. We're gonna use a public channel. Let's just change this to channel, and then we also have to create one more function called broadcast with. So this kind of gives us a control over the data that we want to broadcast. So let's call this broadcast with, and inside this broadcast with function we just want to return, we have peer info, which is the peer infos, and then we have the messages, then we have the messages as well. The messages is supposed to be constructed here, so let's just say messages, so we can grab all the messages from our database. So let's go ahead and save. So right now we are going to try to emit whenever we click on a single user, but we don't have any listener, and it's still going to work perfectly, but we don't have any listener. So we can actually use Pusher. We just got it installed, but what we can do is to add the Pusher keys, and in order to get the Pusher keys and also the private keys, we have to go over to pusher.com and just go over and create an account. So I'm going to sign in with my email address quickly. So I'm already signed in. So you can just click on channels, get started. I'm going to call this our Laravel Instagram. We have Laravel Instagram chats. So it's just going to give you a cluster. So for the back end, we are using PHP. Actually, I don't think all these things are necessary, but let me check for the okay, we are using Laravel here for the back end. For the front end, we are using React.js. So okay, this is good. Create app for multiple environments, which is not bad, but just go ahead and create. So when we create this, it's going to give us a key. So just come to app keys. You can see we have the ID, the key, and also the secret. So I'm just gonna grab this app ID, come over to your environment variables, and on the bottom here you can see the ID. We just paste that. For the key, we also paste that. For the secret, we also paste that, and I'm gonna leave this as the default empty one, but I think it's best that you use your own cluster there that you got. So just get rid of that and paste that as well. So just go ahead and save that. So that creates it for us. So in order to use it on our application on the client side, let's save this and close, and come over to the JS folder, the resources folder, JS file, and click on Bootstrap. So scroll down here, you're gonna uncomment all these codes that is added for you automatically. So just go ahead and uncomment that, and that should be it. So hopefully, let me just try to reload, and right away you can see we don't have Laravel Echo, and we can just go ahead and install that quickly. I'm gonna terminate this, and we can run npm install Laravel Echo. So spell things correctly, please. So this is Laravel Echo. And I got that installed. And one more thing we have to do is to install the pusher, which I forgot as well. So we have to npm install Pusher.JS. And if we check inside here, you can see we are using Pusher.JS, so we have to make sure we install that. I'm going to run watch once more. So what this simply means is that Laravel do have some couple of broadcasters. We can use Ably, we can use Pusher. This is just your Pusher key and also your cluster, and there's nothing much there. And let me check if it's started. And let's go ahead and refresh, and we shouldn't get any dependency error. So right now we have everything that we need installed. So it's going to load, and one more time when we click on this, we try to emit back to this client and grab the messages. So the way we can handle that, let me just go ahead and close all these. So anyone we need, we can reopen that. Let me just close this as well, we don't need it. And let's say over here, if I try something like use effect, so if I try something like this, and let's say whenever our application loads, and I use something like window.echo, and I want to listen to a channel. So our channel name, I want to listen to the channel called channel name. So this is just the default name. We can always change that. And then I want to listen to the event called okay, this is just the event, and this is channel name. Sorry for that. And we have to listen to the channel called load P2P charts. So it's going to return a callback, and let's just call this data. So let me just console.log that data. And we have event called, okay, this is the event and this is channel name. So we are listening to the event with the channel name, and if you check in our routes, right here we are using, sorry, not in our routes, in the event itself, we are using the default name called channel name. So let me just go ahead and give this a refresh, and let's just try that out. I'm gonna click on this, and hopefully I should be able to get something like data being on the console whenever we click on that. So it's not trying to pick up, and I don't know the reason, but we actually do have a connection. So what we can actually do is, okay, right here we are returning true, which is correct. Let me just close this. Let's come over to this debug console. I'm going to create a channel using the default, and you have to use load P2P charts. And let's just say I give this a default data of, let me try again. Okay, sorry, I was trying to use a tab over there. So we have name, and I can say user1. So let me send this, and right here I'm supposed to get a response. I'm supposed to get something because we are emitting events, and you can see we're emitting with user1, and we are emitting with the name as well. So I kind of renamed the event name, the channel name, to get messages, while the event name still remains the same. And even right here, and also inside my load P2P chart, I also changed the to get messages, but I don't know why it's not actually returning messages. But what I will do is, let's just try this on another component. So let me just bring in the right component. I will come over to the inbox, and right here, sorry, below it, I will say if this user, if we actually do have the current user, or else we want to return a null. I want to return the right component. Let me just import that quickly. So Just hit enter and it's going to import it for us. And let me make sure it's placed perfectly. Okay, it's placed nicely. And it's going to accept the current user, which is this user. So let me just go over to that component. So let me kind of save and refresh our application. So if it's included perfectly, it should actually console right component over there. So you can see we are getting the right component. And what we are doing on the left component was too crowded. So I just want to use the effect here. I'm going to bring in the use effects. And then we can use the effect here. Then we have, okay, we can use window dots. How did we do it? Echo dots. So we have echo.channel. Let's use get messages. So I want to listen to load P2P chats. So we're going to return a callback of with data, so which is going to return all the messages.